Hello and welcome to the Inside Track, the podcast where we chat about all the things that give you the edge in the world of innovation, business, design, tech, and culture. I'm Fuzlin Esau, and a big welcome back to Derek Gibb, our Commercial Director here at Hedgehog Lab, as well as our expert guest this week, Stephen Ingledew, founder and chairman of Fintech Scotland and CFIT. Before we jump in, Stephen, I would love to know a little bit more about you and your journey in the industry.
Thank you, Fuzlin, and Derek. Delighted to be with you. Thank you for this opportunity to have a good chat about things going on in the world that comes to innovation and the financial world. So my journey has been 40 plus years. It's beginning to show in the world of changing the financial world for the better, for people and for businesses, really. And so from those early 80s, I worked with a large number of large organisations like Barclays, Standard Life, as well as been involved in some startups, new businesses, which we've gone on to float on the stock exchange. I kind of took a step back about nearly 10 years ago, actually, as I was getting on. But then I was asked to get involved in setting up initially Fintech Scotland as a new independent body to drive innovation in the financial world further. It was just a 2-year project, but I'm still here after 8 years.
That's incredible.
I'm not suggesting a man in financial services at the top has got an issue with numbers, but 2 is definitely not as large as 8. So things must be going okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's been a real privilege, actually. Met so many great people, been involved in so many enterprises, initially here in Scotland, which is now my home here in Edinburgh, but now across the UK with some terrific developments across fintech in many respects.
Excellent. So we like to be quite topical on this podcast, and obviously we can't really talk about what's going on in the UK without sort of calling out the fact that Keir Starmer has stepped down. So the question right now is, can UK fintechs keep their edge after Starmer? So following Starmer's big push to make Britain an AI maker, not an AI taker, fintech is once again being positioned as a strategic national asset. But the UK's historical advantages have come from regulation, global talent, and access to capital. 3 things that are all under pressure as other markets catch up and AI reshapes the industry. The UK's fintech lead is no longer a guarantee, especially during yet another time of uncertainty around leadership. Has UK fintech reached the point where it needs government intervention to stay competitive, or should a world-leading ecosystem be able to stand on its own? And Stephen, do you think Starmer's exit will have any impact on the direction?
Very topical, Fuzlin. My starting point is that fintech's far too important to leave up to the politicians.
100%.
And therefore, intervention isn't a primary factor that's actually made UK one of the global centres when it comes to financial innovation. It's actually come from the entrepreneurship, the innovation, the groundbreaking use of new technologies in the financial world to change it for the better. So that's been the real drive, rather than actually politicians coming up with some new policy. Yeah. But having said that, whilst intervention, you do need a government that's committed to facilitating that environment, those ecosystems in London, but across the whole UK, to enable, that doesn't get in the way, but also does a bit of what we call pump priming, encourages things, entrepreneurs and businesses really to accelerate what they're doing with the right type of government support. That's not intervention, but it's a kind of really sort of a bit of an accelerant that sometimes we all need, don't we, in some ways. So with Starmer, obviously things were started off rather optimistically 2 years ago after the election. And all the right words were being said, a strategy was being set out. And that really came through with the industrial strategy, actually, or the modern industrial strategy, as they call it. And of the 8 big major sectors of the economy, fintech financial services highlighted as one of those. So, yeah, real sort of good intent. The disappointment is, though, that, and also the focus on the economy and economic growth being the number one priority. But of course, that's not been followed through. They seem to have had a list of about 12, 15 priorities, and you can't have that. So the aspect about the economy And within that, fintech, financial services being a priority, has been lost. And you see that whilst there's been terrific support to some extent from the Treasury and from bodies like the FCA in enabling new fintech, the consistency and leadership across government departments has not been there. It's really quite fragmented, actually. And that's really disappointing when you need a team to be focused altogether on economic growth and the departments haven't. And you could argue that the leadership through the Prime Minister has been rather sidetracked onto stuff that really doesn't matter so much to ordinary people and businesses, such as Chagos Island or Ukraine or some of these other peripheral things that don't impact people's day-to-day lives and businesses. So some good stuff, but no real execution. And maybe that's what we're going to get in the coming months with a different Prime Minister. So
view on that one. Very optimistic. I mean, Andy Burnham looks like he'll at least bring something different to the table, that's for sure. But I think it's that whole certainty or uncertainty bit, isn't it? Like people or businesses and investors and all the way that the capital flows, they want a good level of certainty on where things are going. It just seems like we've had not quite a revolving door, but there's a lot of flip-flopping and a lot of things which are constantly in flux as well. Do you think that's going to be a continuous issue, that the capital won't flow this way because of that level of uncertainty that we've had as a nation because of the political landscape?
Partly, Derek, yes. But I don't think it can necessarily undermine really the fact that the UK really is a fast-moving and a very exciting areas for new innovations to kick off and start. It does become an inhibitor in actually fintech businesses really scaling and growing and getting that sort of that Series B, Series C sort of capital, that real sort of growth that really seems to be much more, say, compared to the US, much easier. But it's not stopping the fires being started in a positive way. And I guess one of the other aspects, slight aside really, is what if we're having Burnham as a new Prime Minister, his focus on the regions playing a more important role in enabling, not intervening, but enabling, then that's really, if that can happen through the likes of DSIT and Department of Business and Trade, I think could be a really encouraging step that will give greater confidence and more certainty.
That's an interesting point. What was it, yesterday or the day before, that statement came out where he was talking about the Westminster in the North type thing as well. And like, I mean, yeah, sound bites, I get that, but like a lot of that, the devolution stuff actually really could play well into what we're trying to do on the business landscape, couldn't it? And should feed positively into this sort of side of things.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, last week I was in the Northeast in Newcastle for a major sort of data innovation conference at the university there. And, meeting some of the entrepreneurs and new businesses there that are thriving alongside the established businesses like Atom Bank, Sage, terrific business models that really act as a kind of a role model for business in terms of the possibility of what you can achieve with the right sort of support. But they're often Northeast or Manchester or even Scotland or Wales often forgotten about in terms of there are some really successful businesses that we can sort of look to and sort of say, right, it is doable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I mean, all of those bits you're talking about are some of our main hubs, right? So we're obviously here in Edinburgh, but headquartered in Newcastle, very present particularly with Manchester Digital, but also with Leeds Digital. And yeah, there are some amazing firms there doing some really, really cool things across financial services for one, but in a variety of different industries. And I don't think we just need to have that solid ecosystem to support more of that. And I don't think we need more just like government subsidized things. We just need to have an economy which supports growth, is very much my view on that front.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And it'd be great if more people are aware about these success stories. I mean, as you mentioned there, Derek, Edinburgh, one of the most successful fintechs in the last sort of 15 years, not just in the UK, but globally, is FNZ. Gone through a significant amount of change, but from a couple of guys arriving in Edinburgh, sort of, 15, maybe a bit longer years ago, really, to create the £1 billion business that they have is something not very few people know about in the journey to get there.
And it's amazing. I think there should be more about that's the storytelling piece. I think going back to the Scotland thing, like I don't think Scotland is good at storytelling on that sort of stuff. Like we're good at talking about mountains and whiskey, right? But like not necessarily like, okay, we have an amazing ecosystem of wonderful firms here, really smart people that have come here for a reason or have grown up here and have grown in amazing companies and created stuff which is benefiting the economy. So absolutely with you on that.
Sure. When we set up Fintech Scotland back in 2018, one of our ambitions that we set out were let's be as famous for Scotland as salmon and whiskies.
Perfect.
So we're looking to be on that table.
Well, I mean that's it, and I'm very much with you on the value of that and how well that plays as a story. So hopefully there's more coming out of that, because the startup ecosystem seems to still be going really well. But as to your earlier point, getting to that Series B, Series C, some very meaty numbers. I think that's where we, not just Scotland, but across the Northeast and everywhere outside of London, I think needs a bit more support on how to go on that journey.
Yeah, how to. And I think just a slight example, but an example, FNZ not only has been a major success story and employer and a growth engine in Edinburgh, but also for the UK and globally, it's also invested some of its capital in some of the new fintechs here in Edinburgh. Therefore, propelling some of the new businesses. I was with one last week called Legato, which is doing amazing things, which is actually now sort of going more global in terms of what they're doing. Started off with a chap called Joseph Grace back in 2019. It was just him when I first met him. Now he's 40 people. And based here in Edinburgh, but across the UK, dealing with some major financial institutions with their innovations. So success breeds success, and that's what we need to kind of engender, hopefully.
No, fully back that. And if only there was a really cool podcast we could get some of these interesting people on to shine a bit of a light on them. We need to try and find one, Fuzlin.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's on our next to-do list. Fantastic. I love that. It's good. It's very optimistic. Both of your outlooks are really optimistic, and I think that's incredible.
Success breeds success. Optimism breeds optimism. Let's do that. 100%.
We're going to stay in the fintech industry and a little bit of AI. And this is a topic that comes up frequently whenever we're chatting to anyone in financial services. It's financial literacy and the advice gap problem. The fintech industry is increasingly positioning AI as the answer to that financial literacy and advice gap problem. However, it seems instead of teaching people how to use financial products or how financial products actually work, we're seeing a move towards systems explaining and recommending, and then potentially even looking to make the decisions on a customer's behalf. It's almost as if we're trying to solve a literacy problem with just a technology layer that does the decision making. So if consumers need AI to understand financial products, is the real problem financial literacy, or is it that the financial services products have become too complicated in the first place? I think this is an ongoing thing. You sign up for something, you're not exactly sure what you've signed up for and what it means. Stephen, what are your thoughts on AI being used as a tool for financial literacy?
Well, 2 points initially. Well, first, as I said, my career goes back from starting in the very early 1980s, and that's when products were complex. Okay, there weren't so many, but they were very opaque intentionally. This is before regulations came in from the Financial Services Act of 1986, started from 88, really. So actually, the complications are there. There's a whole range of products. Some are very straightforward, some are not so by their very sort of nature. But there's no doubt we've gone through a terrific sort of shift where technology can play, and including AI, in enabling more people to have a better understanding and improve, therefore, their literacy in that. I think the most important positive about this that encourages me is, as we know, people don't get enough financial guidance, advice, support at the right time when they most need it. And that's because we don't have the significant numbers of financial planners expert advisors who can help people through those times of real difficulty, whether it's losing a job, losing a family member, moving home, retiring, all those other circumstances that we go through in life. Actually, no, people can't always get access really to that in the right way. And if it's more simple needs, how do I start saving for my first home? Again, very difficult. Technology is enabling that. And what that means, it's encouraging obviously people to get a better understanding. So question marks how best that's delivered. But also it means that the financial planners, which are a growing population, will become even more important profession going forward, will be there at those times actually where you need the human touch. You need that human ear and listening, as well as the advice and expertise that only a human really can provide. So in a way, the digital twin of AI alongside a professional advisor is going to help the role of a financial planner, but also help consumers as they go on their financial journey through life.
I think that's really important, and I think financial literacy is it's been a problem for a very long time, and I think that the way that technology is evolving, social media and things like, there's a very pertinent example at the moment with the redress scheme for the car finance, because the way that it's being promoted online via social, it's basically they've removed all friction from understanding what it actually is. So you press a button, some law firm or solicitors or some firm that you've never heard of and don't fully understand what they do, they then take your details and do a thing which you could do yourself for free if you read something for 5 minutes. But the issue is that people are now being double represented on things because they haven't understood what they're doing. So I'm then represented by both Stephen, by Fuzlin, by Josh. And then they're now actually, they're pushing back on their own legislation because law firms would then suggest that, well, I've done work on your behalf, so you are actually due me work on the. But people are then, the people who have got no clue, they've been on TikTok, they press the button, and suddenly they're being held for thousands of pounds worth of legal effort, which they have no idea that that's a thing. So they've had to change that. So I guess it's more around, yes, do people actually want to learn some things, or do we need to add more friction to these things by having more humans that actually will understand things and will provide that professional support and guidance rather than just being a button you press on a screen on your phone?
Yeah, it's a great point, Derek, really. I think there's it goes a bit further than your PCP example there, than the car financing, in the sense that obviously whilst we move much more into this digital economy and digital enablement across all generations, including older generations as well, the economic crime, the financial crime aspect, the fraudulent sort of side has become much more prevalent in terms of their reach. And that's where, AI can actually be quite a negative, because obviously how it's being used, and even, someone like, Martin Lewis really being, sort of an avatar made of him to suggest here's the best investment since sliced bread. So there's a real sort of delicate balance here in ensuring that people have a level of circumspect about what they're doing. I think that applies across not just finance, but everything really, but there's more of a questioning rather than accepting it's technology, therefore it must be right, more so than the human. So I think the key for me is making sure the technology tail and the AI tail doesn't wag the dog of the human, and how best we keep that balance the right way around.
No, absolutely, and I think it's a very valid point on that, and it's about access and leveling the playing field a little bit. So I'm in two camps with this for a couple of reasons. Like, so for example, in work we have done a project with a firm who represent people in Africa, who it's basically democratizes legal access because it's very expensive. People who don't have access to the information via AI, they now can get to the table to understand rights and all that sort of stuff via a chat interface. So really cool. But on the other side, if you're just not, if people aren't, if they're outsourcing their brain to some things as well, like you need to, there needs to be a line. And I read this paper earlier this week, and it was around you should not outsource anything that you actually value, because if you will lose the ability to do that, and you will not learn anything. So if you like writing long form stuff, you should continue to write that, and not have AI do that bit for you, because through time all of your skills will evaporate in that world. And it just goes to that. So if you want to be present and you want to actually understand your rights and all that sort of stuff, you need to actually be able to step back and do the learning, and not just outsource everything to a bot somewhere, I think.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, completely right. And it's also recognizing the human sort of characteristics that are so important: emotion, sort of intuition, creativity. Now, some argument is that something that AI can or will be able to do? But they're so important in terms of that social, as human beings, social beings, and interaction, understanding. And the emotional side and emotional intelligence comes more to the fore, whilst actually the heavy lifting of the very factual stuff can be picked up by the tech, and therefore releasing us to be much more human than actually doing some of the jobs or some of the tasks that really can be done by a machine.
Absolutely. And like that, the human aspect is just, it's why we created an in-person event, because this is great. We're saying nice things, we're chatting to each other, but like the value of actually human to human, person in-person contact is invaluable. So we've curated events which are very small, but it's around getting those interesting change makers in the room together, bouncing ideas and just having value, as well. So totally get the value of real people, real humans. I assure you, I'm not an avatar. So if I was,
that's the real Derek Gibb.
And then, one of my favourite words always has been is the word serendipity. And that really, I see it most weeks actually, where you have the opportunity to bring together people who wouldn't normally come together, wouldn't even have actually, even thought of each other, let alone met, and see then the creativity and the new opportunities and doors that open as a result of that.
Our next topic is exactly around that, the idea of experts versus AI. So the World Cup is going on right now. South Africa is out, devastated. So, we're not going to talk about that bit. But the World Cup has become a testing ground for a lot of machine-assisted decision making. The promise is obviously better outcomes, but the trade-off is that human judgment increasingly takes the backseat to systems and data. Does the reliance on tech at the World Cup beg the question, do we trust AI to make improved decisions over humans? And when AI becomes better than people at making those decisions, do experts become more important or less important, Stephen?
Yeah, so it's a great sort of question. I think that one of the words you use there, Fuzlin, is AI becoming more important over humans. I think it can't become more over, otherwise you lose that human centricity, really. But going back to basics, I always go back to my one of my Oscar Wilde quotes, and that is that the truth is rarely pure and never simple.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it may be a decision, and it may be a decision that AI has come up with, but it's rarely pure and never simple, really, in terms of how that gets. Now, you could argue that some are. Has the ball crossed over the line? Has it not? No, that. But there are so many other decisions, as we've seen in this World Cup, that are not that. And it does require human, and that human is it's a judgment. That, and I think what we're beginning to realise is that we can actually question more if it's a human judgment and the rationale behind that and the thinking, unlike with AI, where it's just said, well, that's the answer, 100%. You can't argue against it. But when it's not pure and really simple, which many decisions are, particularly in life, personally, as well as with business, that's not. So I don't see it becoming over, but I do see it being alongside, back to this digital twin, enabling, facilitating, prompting, can be a great sort of kind of benefit to us all, both in sport and in finance.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think it gives us an opportunity when the tech is so good, it gives us a chance to step back and figure out, are we actually judging the right things on you? Like Dot, you mentioned offside, right? Like, is that the right rule? Like, it should, because my moustache is a flick over, like, should I be offside? Like, probably not, right? So, I mean, but it is, right? So, because either it is or it isn't. So, if we use the technology to tell you that that's the case, then fine. But perhaps the bigger question is, okay, the tech allows us to be very, very, very accurate, perfectly accurate on this. Are we judging it against the right things? So maybe it gives an opportunity to make sure that we're not extracting all the fun out of the game, and maybe looking at the different ways that the rules are actually implemented as well.
That's right, Derek. Yeah, I mean, the thing about the offside rule, the key aspect about the offside rule is that player interfering with play. So how could a machine, AI, determine that? Really, it's a judgment. So, and I say that as an ex-passionate footballer who didn't make it. Obviously, I didn't make it to the World Cup. I didn't quite make it onto those professional books of Reading Football Club that I'd hoped to achieve. But it stays in the blood. So you've been there. And that's part of what many sports are, and life in business, where there is different perspectives, different views, and it doesn't mean that people always agree. They're never going to agree on football, are they?
Oh, absolutely not. But that's the fun, isn't it? We can have an argument. We can fight with each other in the pub. Not fight. We have a heated debate on stuff. But I mean, I absolutely do not trust everything in human judgment as well. I mean, look at these hydration breaks. Like, who decided that was a good thing, other than people who were going to make millions and millions of pounds out of these things? Anyway, I'll keep my moaning to a minimum on this one. I don't want to become the grumpy old man again.
Grumpy old man. Take tech out of the sport. Go back to the purity of the game.
But yes, I mean, experts still the importance of expertise, but it's an expertise in the human application, the human role, the human sort of areas of sort of development enabled by technology.
I think it's also very clear in something as very simple as the commentary. I think that's such a huge part of the game, and that's all human interaction. That's someone watching and giving you information and all of those sort of things. And I think that's such a key layer to which fans experience the game, that it doesn't matter that there's a sensor in the ball and a sensor on a shoe and the sensors everywhere. I don't think there's a sensor shortage, but the way people are still experiencing it is through that commentary, through being there live, and through that experience. And I think that for me makes having human experts a lot more important than sort of having AI assisted decision making.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you have to just look at, like, because they all have wearables, right, and all this sort of stuff. I mean, the ball's got it nowadays, but then it's like that human judgment that Stephen mentioned. So, like, if a manager's looking at it, well, this guy's wandering about, he's hardly run a meter, then you realise, well, the data is telling you he's absolutely terrible, but then you realise it's Messi, and he's done his Messi thing, right? He's just not really done anything, and then popped up and scored a hat trick. So, like, can the raw data tell you that? I'm not sure. So I think that there's definitely a part of enhancing the data that the experts get, but the experts definitely have to still play the main part in everything that we do.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's certainly true of football, but certainly I run now, and running, if you run long distance, say a marathon, yes, it is about physical, but the psychology, the mental side, is something which is very human. And psychology of someone like Harry Kane to be able to step up and take a penalty twice is you're making a call there. Is that the right person who's got that resilience to do so at that point in time? He may have it on that day, but not on other days. They're all human judgments.
He's never going to be able to tell you that.
No, I'm just jealous of the running. I'm in recovery from an Achilles injury, which is taking so long. It's unbelievable. And it's it's a year, and it's still not allowed to run yet. So because you apparently have to get to 80% strength in the injured leg, injured calf, to then be able to allow to run, because the explosive nature of how body mechanics work is just it's just you can't do it. So like, I'm very tempted, and I actually did slightly run across because I nearly get it was jaywalking today, so there was a bus coming. I had to get off the road, so I moved slightly faster than it was allowed, but I didn't fall over, so that was all right. But yeah, I'm jealous of your maybe not marathon level, but I'd like to run like 5K at some point in the very near future.
Yes. And there's resilience, that comes through injuries, really, Derek, is tough, isn't it? And sometimes, as much as you can read on the internet and on, through AI about what to do and what to do, sometimes you need other humans around you sort of tell you this is how I came through that.
It is because I am. So this has gone off the track of what we were going to talk about, but I'll do it anyway because I got in the recovery mode, and I was using I use AI for so many things, and I'd made a plan, and I was using it as a bit of a guidance and stuff there, but I was missing that human to give me some. So for example, when I got the boot off, and then I did my first walk with it, I was okay. And then I was going on a train down to Newcastle, and as I was walking along the platform, all these pops and cracks, and I was, oh my God, I thought I'd gone again. And I got into the train, and it was just like, blooming heck, I'm going to be back in this boot for 3 months again. So I had the fear that I was back on my chat GPT, and what I was missing was a human to tell me, well, actually, you've got scar tissue. It's going to, all of your, like the sheath and all that sort of stuff is all stuck. It will make horrific noises, and it will be a little bit sore, but you'll generally be okay. If someone had told me that, I'd be fine. But so I actually got the reassurance from ChatGPT. I could have kissed my phone because I was just on this train thinking, if I get to the other end of this, I will never get back. So anyway. So yes, human expert would have been good. AI was okay at that point to just get me over the hump a little bit.
Excellent.
I think that's a big part of the mental game in running is the people you're running with. And one of the things we recently had Comrades Marathon, which is 90 kilometers. And that is not something that you can finish by yourself. That is something that you're there with, your support system, with your mentally you're prepared, you have your support system, and you're there with your, fellow runners doing it, because 90 kilometers is not an easy feat. And to see people crossing over the finish line is one of the most human things you can ever see. I think Comrades is even called the human race if you ever consider doing it. Derek, maybe that's something to work towards.
I'm not going to go. Definitely not signing up for that anytime soon. But like that, the human encouragement thing is really important, right? So my brother-in-law's just did Manchester Marathon a month ago, and he's not a runner at all, but he was doing it for a very good cause, something very close to his heart. And he said that those moments where you feel like stopping and failing, and then you've got like some kid who's shouting like, "Go on!" because you've got your name. It's like, "Go on, Jordan, do it! You can do it!" And all that, like the emotion that comes from that really just pushes you through. Stephen, you must have experienced this if you're an avid runner.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's very difficult to explain. This is often human aspects are really human life really, because you can be running on your own, then all of a sudden you enter a race really, and you end up going. You can go too fast initially, but this is why park run. And Derek, this is where maybe you start and come back down to Edinburgh, Cramond. Park run is encouraged because actually that social aspects has got more people not just running, but finding actually they can improve over sort of time because they're running with others.
So it is an actual goal. So I've got a physio appointment this week. So if I get the green light on being able to move more than a walking pace, I will give you a shout because I'll definitely want to be involved.
Please do.
Love it. And the park runs are fantastic. My brother and father compete every single Saturday morning to see who can get that. They're just 5 seconds out of each other, so it's just always who's the first 5 seconds in front.
Excellent.
Super.
Well, that leads us really nicely onto our cultural pick of the week, which is a piece of music, film, TV, a book that you found has inspired you this week. And I think that's always a good way to end things on an inspiring note. So, Stephen, what has inspired you this week? from a cultural pick?
I think I've got two actually. If I'm allowed to, really. But one actually, I went back as a book that actually has been with me for over 10 years, just over 10 years, that I use as a constant reference. It's not necessarily a book you do dip into, but there's a philosopher, business icon called Charles Handy. Was actually wrote books really from the late 80s, 90s. His final book was called, actually I had it on my, is called The Second Curve. And it's very much that sort of aspects about a radical rethink of business, politics, society, and how it can be improved. Now, this was written back in 2015, and many of the things he said have come through in a positive way. And it's where I draw on in terms of that insight. Now, Second Curve is all about you change when you're on the up, not when you're on the down. That's called the second curve. And if you go through product cycle, engineering, design, methodology, they talk about the second curve being when you're on the up is when you look for the next stage rather than actually when you look into when you're starting to struggle. So that and why it sort of strikes a chord is because his snippets and ideas really make you realise actually things can be done, but they don't have to be really big and grand. And I think this is why I go back to fintech. I see so many smaller examples, but actually the whole becomes bigger than the sum of the part. That's what's made UK fintech so well known, established, and successful. The whole is bigger, but it's underneath these small parts. And he has a little saying that, great visions and great people are in short supply. So we must try to light our own small fires in this darkness. So it's a responsibility back on us to do our own little fires. That's my Charles Handy.
I will be looking that book out as I've written that down. That sounds absolutely incredible, and not one that I'm even aware of. So I feel like I've missed a trick, but I'm definitely going to get involved with that.
Real. I keep. There's a couple of other, but I keep them. I read them regularly. I always take one on holiday with me.
Nice.
So
it's good to have those books because they're often not books that you read cover to cover, are they? But then you go and you go, like, I know that bit that I want to get inspiration from. Again, it's awesome to have something like that to refer back to.
Yeah, we all need those pickups really. And my own, if I mentioned the music, obviously I go back. I grew up during the era of punk rock in the 70s, really. But one of the basic, really great bands that came out of punk rock was Dex's Midnight Runners.
Oh yeah,
they are back on the. They're coming back on the road. They're releasing an album in September, a new album, first time in years and years, decades, in September, and they've just released one of the tracks called "This Is My England." And actually, my daughter's just told me she's got tickets to go and see Dex's Midnight Runners in Newcastle at the O2 in October. So anyway, I've listened, and that I thought, wow, yes. Back to the 70s, or
I love it. Full circle moment with your daughter going to country.
That is very cool. I like that very much, and it's like that. It's close to the heart, isn't it? So they're doing that with someone you love. It can't possibly be better. I love
Absolutely, Derek. Yeah, that's very special. You're right. You can't. Again, the human thing. You couldn't manufacture that.
Yeah, no, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I've got a sort of 70s music related thing that I was going to mention as well as my inspiration. And it's sort of leaning in near punk, not punk really, but Frank Zappa. So there was a really nice quote, like it's an old quote, obviously, but it's one that I'd read this week. I was like, actually, just it's so relevant to a lot of things just now. I was like, I'm going to read it so before I forget it. It's like, without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, actually, like it's so well put and it's so simple. It's like, well, actually, it's just so relevant to everything that we're seeing and we're trying to achieve. So yeah, it's like, set those little fires, isn't it? I suppose.
Definitely, Derek. Yeah, and Frank Zappa is often pointed to by, punk was really fintech's very similar to punk. I don't know if because what punk did with the music scene there, it opened it up to anyone could form a band, anyone could be part. You had more women sort of led punk bands than any other type of band. Really, it opened it up, right? Just being just for the men, really. And yes, a lot of them couldn't play the instruments, but it got more people in on stage playing, performing didn't go on to great success. But it kind of shook things up, deviates, as you rightly say. In fact, it was a kind of an instigator behind some of that.
Cool. Very cool.
Amazing.
I love it. And I do have the other. I'm going to take a second one as well, just because I went to see Toy Story 5 with my kids over the weekend.
So 5.
There's 5. So like I remember seeing the first one when I was a child, and I can't quite believe how long ago that was. But then, so the whole, I will not give the story away, you'll not miss anything, but it's like the rise of the machine, right? So it's like everyone's on their devices. And my kids, thankfully, touch wood, are not addicted to YouTube or tablets or whatever. So they're good, but they obviously do have some sort of screen time things. But both of them, when they came home, all they wanted to do was everything that was outdoors or playing with things or just like being a kid again. And I was like, that is beautiful. So like the message landed with them clearly, which was very, very nice.
Yeah, brilliant.
I absolutely love that. 5 Toy Stories is insane.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't know there was 5.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to do there.
I've been inspired by a little thing called the World Cup this week with the out of the 10 African nations that were in the World Cup, 9 making it through to the knockout round. We just see Morocco beat the Netherlands. Some incredible upsets happening. And I think this is one of those things where it's been opened up more, right? So they let more countries in this year. And it has proved to, I feel, make for a more exciting experience because we're seeing all of these teams that we, Cabo Verde, all of those sort of things that we haven't seen these people playing before, and now we're seeing this sort of rise up in the World Cup and becoming teams that people know about. So that has been very inspiring, especially again being from Africa and seeing that happen because we're not usually that, unless it's rugby, then.
I think I couldn't agree more. I think it is wonderful. Really, that's a good example of that. Breaking the norm mold of just 32 teams or whatever it was. Really before that. And having said that, obviously England have got the Democratic Republic of Congo next. So,
I know who I'm supporting.
Of course, yes.
Well, thank you both for joining us, and thank you to everyone who's listening this week. To find out more about our sessions, our briefings, our product builders, or the network, head on over to our website, our social channels, and of course, follow this podcast for more. We will see you next time. Thank you, everyone.